didn't take long until we were like, did you see the triple over there? I bet we can pull it. And the bike just wants you to go big. I spent unreasonable amounts of time on all of those. At times, I think I doubted myself, or I sounded a little bit like a lunatic, because people just sometimes look at you and they're like, really, dude? Yeah, it was kind of a leap from Canyon side. Everything happened very quickly when this came about.
All right, Leo Malmröd, welcome to the Downtime Podcast, man. How's things?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, all good. Just had some nice vacation, and now we have an exciting launch, so can't complain.
Yeah, before we step into that then, you went to Japan, didn't you, on snowboard?
Yeah, some proper powder.
How was that? I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, I can highly recommend. I think I can say for sure it's my best trip ever. Such amazing snow, the people, the culture, the food, everything is just top notch. So
perfect. I'll keep that one on the list for sure, man. Yeah. Well, before we get stuck into talking about the new version of the Canyon Spectral, just give us like a real brief history. How did you end up at Canyon doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, tough to make it brief. It was basically my life goal since I was a kid, trying to race downhill. Yeah, I was one of the normal stoked kids doing some racing, not really having the talent to go anywhere as a rider, still wanting to work with bikes. Figured out that, yeah, product development and engineering would be a good road for me, and basically started doing everything I can to get there, like in terms of studies and everything. Obviously kept riding and staying in the scene. I was wrenching on the World Cups for Robin and Niklas Wallner for a while, having a lot of connections just from the Swedish scene, and met my current boss, Daniel, at Eurobike one year through Anton Thielander, and since then I'm at Canyon.
Amazing. And what's your current job title at Canyon?
Product development engineer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you lead the development of the previous Spectral?
Correct. So that was my first big project. So that was really my baby. Like, that was when my life goal turned real somehow, and now I have to try and up it. So obviously it's a big team working on it, and it's some really great teamwork. But I guess I'm the one that's been there from the very start to now at product launch. So
yeah, interesting, man. Yeah, and the outgoing Spectral is a fantastic bike. Like, we've spent a decent chunk of time on it on the podcast. We've done a couple of projects with it. We did the wheel size comparison where we rode all three wheel size variants and did some timing. We did another project where we compared it to the Torque and the Strive, and it's always been a super popular bike. Very easy to ride, very fun to ride, and also kind of capable beyond its numbers, I would say. And I chatted to the guys that I've done those projects with, and we were all kind of a bit concerned, like, how do you take a bike that to us felt kind of perfect, like really good, and improve it? We were worried that you might somehow ruin some of the magic in it. I guess the question is, what gave you the confidence that you could take something that was genuinely that good and improve on it?
Yeah, first of all, thanks. I also like the previous bike a lot. So yeah, it was a challenge. It's not easy, and at times I think I doubted myself, or I sounded a little bit like a lunatic, because like for the last one we made such big changes and big steps to just bring it to modern trail bike capabilities, and now all the like key figures, they were already fine before we started this project. So it's really about every detail, like going into every detail and trying to make everything super refined. So some of those things gets quite abstract, and I'm quite sure I felt it on the previous bike, so I knew that I at least had a direction that I think I could improve the bike. But sometimes when you try and communicate a few of those things, like how the rear triangle flexes or whatever, people just sometimes look at you and they're like, really, dude? And I'm like, I'm quite sure. But then, yeah, back then we didn't really have the data on it either, and we've been working on ways of measuring it and test jigs and everything. So during the years, we gained so much more information and tools to to know more about the bikes as well. So yeah, for a while there, I felt more like, surfboard shapers or something like this, how I wanted to improve
Yeah.
this new bike, but slowly the engineering is catching up, and luckily, the results we've gotten have proven that I wasn't wrong, at least. So
Awesome. So it's a combination of kind of your vision and like a natural ongoing improvement in the engineering tools and techniques within Canyon.
yeah, so obviously not me, but since I've been such a big part of both these projects, this one and the previous one, I'm pretty much the spectral guy by now. Obviously, we get a lot of feedback from all sides, so we have great colleagues in the different parts of the world, so the Australian, US, British market. We had people racing the World Cups on it. We get a lot of feedback, but yeah, I think I'm the one that's been closest to both these bikes. So yeah, I guess that's where you get the really nitty-gritty details from.
Yeah. So where do you start then with a project like that? Have you just basically sat down and kind of drawn up a list of all of the things that you want to go away and improve, and then you kind of need to sell that, I guess, internally to get the funding and the workforce, the staff needed to get all those things done?
Honestly, I can't really remember, but I for sure have that kind of list in my head, and I think a lot of people have as well. The Spectral is a hugely important bike for Canyon, obviously. It's a lot of people's favorite bike, and this category of bike is so important. And yeah, especially for Canyon, it suits perfectly the kind of riding around our headquarters in Koblenz, Germany, but also for our US team, it works really well for them around Southern California, also Canyon UK around Surrey Hills. It's perfect bike. So I think it was never any question about not doing the project. And then, we had a massive pre-development phase before it, really looking into everything. If we should, just reconsidering everything. Should we swap to a different suspension platform? Had some crazy kinematics prototypes, geometry stuff. Worked on the storage, which we will get to. So yeah, we really had that thorough look if we wanted to do a similar bike or if we wanted to do something else, but we couldn't really find any good reasons to change away from the familiar platform. So that was like a really good foundation before we kicked off the Spectral project itself. Just reassuring what we know and that what we're doing is what we want to keep on doing. And then it's just about translating it. Especially so like kinematics and geometry you can test quite well with prototypes, but things like stiffness and tuning the flex and compliance and everything is something you can't really do with prototypes that well. You kind of need to have the final frame and fine tune it in the end with layout. So that's where this tuning kind of mentality comes in, I guess. So but I've been working super closely with some other engineers for different parts of the bike, but also with the industrial designers, product managers, management, everything. We've been really involved and pushed really hard during the final design phase of the project to make it happen, and then of course later on fine tuning in the manufacturing and the layups and everything too.
And one of the sort of smallest changes on the bike, but one of the biggest changes, I guess, for the lineup within Canyon is before you had 3 different wheel size options on the website. Now you've gone down to adding this flip chip to the rear end of the bike, which is super clever. Which means I think you can select at checkout basically whether you want the bike as a 29er or a mullet, and then once you own it, if you want to swap it, it's a super easy job to do. But the elegant simplicity of that functionality on the bike is not, I would imagine, that easy to engineer, because there's a lot of things that you're trying to keep common, right? You're trying to keep the geo right, you're trying to keep the kinematic right. Like, how did you go about solving that problem?
It's kind of a tricky one, but it's not so tricky to achieve, but achieving it in an elegant and like easy to use, lightweight way is a little bit tricky for sure. So we were really sure that we wanted to do it without any compromises to the geometry. That's why we did the previous bike like we did with the modular rear and front end. So you could just have the full 650B, full 29, and then have the 650B rear triangle and then 29. Yeah, but we learned from our own testing and ourselves that it's really nice to be able to swap rear wheels just between runs to test it. We did the same wheel size testing as you, and back then it was so cool to be able to do it with one bike. But also we learned really quickly from customers that it's just super valuable for everyone to be able to swap wheel size later on, if only to just take the edge of deciding which one you want when you buy the bike. So that was pretty clear that we needed to do it, and we wanted to do it for ourselves too. But just the flip chip, we figured out that if we put it there in the horse link, we could just adjust the BB drop to the rear to completely match the difference in wheel radius. Mm-hmm. So that's easy thing. Then you maintain the complete geometry, like it should be. So you just flip the wheel and nothing really changes except for the chainstay length in this case and some small changes to the kinematics. We had ways of counteracting those two to make everything completely neutral. That would obviously be one more flip chip or something like this, but we felt like those effects kind of suited the difference between the wheel sizes, so we kept it, which made everything nice and simple, and also the geometry and kinematics changes intentionally to the wheel size differences, so that turned out pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, so it's slightly more progressive in the mullet setup, is that right?
Yeah, and slightly shorter chainstays.
Yeah, and so shorter chainstays makes sense. Why would you want to be slightly more progressive with the smaller rear wheel? What's the kind of engineering reasoning behind that?
Most of the progression is early stroke, the difference. So obviously the small wheel rolls slightly, like it doesn't have the same nice rollover as a 29er. So just having it a bit more supple in the top end suits that quite well. And then having a bit more ramp suits quite well, because I think you tend to ride the mullet a bit more aggressive and less like flowy and finessey, like the 29er wants to be ridden. Again, those kind of abstract mountain biking discussions, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And you made some other changes to the suspension platform. So the bike's gone from being a 150mm rear end to a 140mm rear end. I think you've made the progression more linear to try and improve the characteristics from your perspective, and there's also a little bit less anti-squat. Can you talk us through those three elements and the thinking behind those?
Yeah, so that was another obviously really big part of the project. It kind of goes back to the Spectral 125 that we did, which is a little bit of a crazy bike, how hard you can ride with that little travel, but we love it. And some of that character is so good that we wanted to bring it up to the normal Spectral, because it's so playful and efficient and just eager when you step on the pedal. So we wanted to bring a bit more of that into this new Spectral without sacrificing any capability to go fast and hard. So we decided to go down in travel back to 140 like the Spectral always used to be. And so we didn't make the leverage curve more linear, but more linearly progressive, just to make it go a little bit deeper into the travel more often, but still having enough ramp up in the end to not bottom out more. Just it takes away a little bit of mid-stroke support, but makes it a bit more forgiving and maybe intuitive for the mid-size hits, let's say. So a bit more floaty in the mid-section of the travel, and just less knife edgy and easier to understand what it's going to do next. And the anti-squat is similar. Obviously the pedaling improves just from going down in travel, but we also tested that really thoroughly before the project and found that the like the negative sides of chain influence and anti-squat keeps going. It always keeps going if you add that to the bike. But yeah, we figured from the testing we did that the perceived efficiency of the rear suspension didn't really decrease to a certain point, and then it starts dropping off. So we figured that if we go down a little bit in anti-squat for this one compared to the previous one, which was obviously super efficient, we could get a little bit more suppleness and less chain influence on the suspension to just not give up any traction or forgiveness in the rear suspension compared to the longer travel previous bike. So
yeah. And is that something that you're going to feel more like on a climb, say, where you kind of maybe you've got to climb over some roots or some little rocky edges or something, or is that something you'll feel across the board, that initial like suppleness in the stroke, the willingness for it to drop in?
So in terms of like on the downhills, you're gonna notice it pretty much everywhere. Like the less the chain is pulling on the suspension, the better, right? On the climbing, what it does is that it locks up your suspension, like anti-squat locks up your suspension, so you don't have the pedal bob, but also makes it obviously work less. So that's, I guess, why it's perceived to not be less efficient when you go down a couple of percentage points in anti-squat, because maybe you have slightly more pedal bob, but then the rear wheel can track the ground better, so you don't lose the energy when you have small hang-ups on roots or some small steps. So I guess those ones kind of balance each other out when you just talk about small differences, like a couple of percentage points around the optimal area. So that was our conclusion. The bike pedals really great. I hope you agree. I think we all do. And it's one of the main goals for this bike was to increase the sensitivity and the suppleness, even if we go down and travel. And this definitely plays a big part of achieving that. So
it definitely didn't feel, if no one had told me it had 10 mil less travel, I'm not sure that I would have picked up on it personally. And but it definitely does pedal incredibly well for the kind of bike that it is. Let's talk about the changes to the geometry, because this was the one that scared me more than anything. I think I'm probably gradually starting to understand the whole reach stuff a bit more, but the reach for me and the medium and the old bike, I think, was 456, and it's gone up to 475, which when the guys sent the information over for the launch, almost tempted me to size down to the small to get to a 450, which probably would have been a little bit too short for me. But I decided I'd stick with the 475, expecting that it might cause me some issues and I might struggle a little bit with the front end of the bike. But I've not felt that at all. Like, it feels planted, it feels safe. I don't feel like the front end's gonna drift out on me or get any understeer. How is that a result of other numbers changing along with it that's giving me that confidence to ride the longer reach? Because it's definitely a more stable platform with that longer reach there.
I don't know really. Like, how tall are you?
Not very. 5'7" maybe.
5'7". Yeah. So actually, our intention with obviously the reach has increased if you compare the frame sizes to the previous model, but honestly, we haven't done it so much to keep making the bike longer in terms of riding. It's more to do with dialing it in with our sizing strategy. So obviously, we are a direct-to-consumer brand, and our tools for customers to find their frame size and all of this is super valuable for us. So all the frame sizes have their suggested ranges, and these new reach values are just the latest development to try and be on point with those recommendations, basically.
Okay.
But of course, a longer bike will most of the times feel really stable and secure in that way until you go too long and get this pushy feeling of the front wheel, the kind of understeery feeling like you're talking about. So it's great that it wasn't too long for you. We increased the stack a little bit compared to the previous model. Maybe that's why you feel a bit more confident to ride the longer reach, because the angles of your body position are probably maintained because of the stack.
I figured it was potentially something to do with that, because I've ridden bikes at around the 465 mark, and that's where I start to have problems keeping the front end in check.
Oh,
So
okay.
475 I was convinced was going to be problematic, but it wasn't, and it kind of surprised me that I didn't even feel like I was trying to compensate. It just worked. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it's interesting. But yeah, it definitely adds to kind of the stability and the confidence on the bike. But another thing that was a big change, really, and it's coming across the range now after a little sort of teaser launch last year in a small volume, is the KISS system, the Keep It Stable steering stabilizer, which again, I'll admit to have been a little bit skeptical about and wondering, like, is this a nice marketing thing to differentiate us from other brands, or is it actually a real engineering driven thing? And having ridden it and experienced it and played about with the different settings on it, I'm fully convinced. I'm sold. It definitely improves things, especially in the conditions we rode in, which were like kind of muddy, rutty things where you really want the bike to hold a straight line. Talk us through the introduction of KISS, because it's a big change, right, to put something like that inside the bike, and also kind of brand new to the market.
Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. That's probably more than the stack. That's probably what gave you this feeling with the longer reach, I guess, that helped you with the front end. It was kind of a leap from Canyon side. Everything happened very quickly when this came about. So that's why we launched the KISS bikes before on the previous Spectral platform. Those were just like small batch production, 3D printed parts, some CNC stuff, just to get it on the market. Just to start realizing the potential. I think no one said it was perfect then, but we really wanted to get it out there and have people experiencing it and start achieving the potential of it. It's a little bit polarizing, and I think people are, right to be skeptical of it. Of course, we've been riding bikes our whole lives, and now we have something pulling on your bars. It's going to take some getting used to. But our findings are really that for most riders, it really has some great benefits. So we just encourage, we don't want to force it on anyone. The bike is a great bike without it. You can take it out if you really want to. But you just need to try it and get used to it, and try and find the right setting for you, the level of self-alignment you want, and it just calms everything down, makes the front end more predictable, helps you to stay online. And like I said, if you're doing a lot of jumping, or if you're just skeptical in general and want your steering neutral, you can take it out. So we think it's good, but we don't want to force it on anyone. But it's definitely cool to try it, and if you get used to it, there are some real benefits there.
Yeah, definitely. It's super easy to adjust to, like on the fly, which makes life easy. Literally, like a 2-second job to change the setting on it. How would you describe what that system does for people? Because it's basically just trying to pull the steering back to center, right? It's not a damper. It's a stabilizer in that respect.
Yeah, stabilizer. You could say that. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. It keeps your steering more, like, it brings your steering back to straight, which is not saying that cornering sucks or anything. But if you look into the steering dynamics of the bike, obviously you have the trail, which is the lever that pulls your wheel straight when you have some resistance on the wheel. And then you have the wheel flop, which is just the lowering of the head tube when you turn your handlebars and front wheel. Both those effects can be good at times. Trail is almost always desirable because it's a nice dynamic effect that keeps you riding, basically. But the wheel flop can sometimes be problematic. I think most people know it when your bike just turns in when you want to go straight. You just hit the catch berm and you want to keep going straight, but the bike just want to fold. The KISS pretty much helps to. It doesn't remove the wheel flop because it's something we need to to keep riding straight, but we can control it a bit more. So I guess that's briefly in what it does in technical terms, that we can somehow limit that effect and make the bike a bit more stable through it.
Yeah, we felt that it was when we were in kind of deep muddy ruts where you'd almost start ping-ponging off the sides of the ruts, and the bike didn't really want to like go straight. It felt with the KISS on, compared to the old bike without it, that it just held a better line and was a lot easier to ride in the rut without like bouncing off the sides of it.
So it just calms everything down a bit in practice. If you want to get into the engineering equations when you're in a rut, that's going to be all over the place because you have all kinds of lateral forces and things grabbing your tire and changing all the dynamics. But in essence, it calms everything down, makes it a bit more predictable, and just helps you to hold the line basically. So it's cool that you notice those things that it's intended to do.
Yeah, calmer is a great way to describe it. Like switching between the two bikes, it just felt it felt calmer. It was a more confidence-inspiring bike to ride in those conditions for sure.
Nice.
And then there's some other stuff that's I guess less visual as well, as the change in stiffness to the bike. So talk us through what you wanted to achieve there, because again, I don't think anything was like majorly wrong with the old one, but you've wanted to find some improvements there.
Yeah, correct. So for the previous model, it got quite a lot stiffer. We just figured it. Obviously, you can't go stiffer is not better, but for the previous project, we went up in stiffness because with the capability of modern trail bikes, if you go bigger, you go faster, or at least you can. And we feel like especially front end stiffness gives you the confidence to do so, like to feel comfortable riding the way the bike can be ridden somehow. But for this one, we wanted to keep the overall values, but like I said in the beginning, we wanted to tune it in a bit more to have the bike stiff where we want it and flex where we want it to. So we kept the front triangle fairly stiff. And then, we wanted to stiffen up the connection from the rear triangle to the front triangle to just have all those forces more controlled, having less lateral forces going into the shock, etc., to just keep everything working in a 2D plane like it's intended to do. And then we went like the cross-section of the chainstays and the seat stays, for example, are smaller to introduce more flex in the carbon parts of the rear triangle where we want the frame to flex and where we can control the flex a bit more. So this, together with the flex of the rear wheel and the tire, helps giving you this more supple feeling and traction that you need in flat turns and off cambers and stuff. So that would be the quick explanation of what we wanted to achieve.
But like you said or alluded to earlier, quite hard to. You can't really get ahead on that. You need to almost set the geometry of the bike and get the molds made before you can really start to assess that. It's not something you can do so much on a prototype.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you can test things with existing parts, like on some of the downhill race bikes, you can have different seat stay bridges, chainstay bridges. We've done that, cutting the bridge off and gluing on different versions. But it's never really the same, and you can adapt the stiffness and the flex with the layup, but it's only so much you can do with the layup because it also needs to have the strength and the weight dialed in too. So actually the shape of the geometry of the tubes is more important when it comes to defining the flex pattern. So that's a tricky part, and we do our best to engineer it with simulations and all our test jigs and getting more and more data. But then when you lock in the final geometry, you kind of have to do it by feel and take the knowledge you have, and then it's down to like a certain feeling for what it's going to do somehow.
Yeah. Were you pleasantly surprised when you got the parts out of the mold then and got the opportunity to ride them for the first time? That must be a big day. Yeah,
that was really cool. I remember it so well from the previous Spectral. The first time I rode it, I was super surprised that it didn't feel the way I thought it would. judged from the kinematics, and that's when I really started getting into the flex rabbit hole. And with this one, it was pretty much spot on how I imagine it, and that was cool. Because like I said, for a while I thought I was going crazy there when I was talking about all these things, like, I want to move this section to here and just make it 2 millimeters narrower there, and people are like, are you sure? And then it turns out that it works, and we sent some bikes to Jack, for example, our brand manager over in the UK, and didn't really tell him anything, and he just picked up on those things blindly, and I was like, okay, this is good news. I wasn't going crazy.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, nice one. And you also gone and put some in-frame storage in the bike, which is becoming pretty common these days. It's things that people are definitely looking for on a bike. But I'm guessing cutting a hole in the carbon fiber tube, it's not just as simple as that, right? Because you've got loading going through that. It needs to be strong and safe, and you also need something that's easy to access, and you're able to get to what you put in there.
Yeah, correct. Not super easy. But first of all, obviously, it's a super nice feature. We cannot claim the initial innovation to it by any means, but I think it's just benefit for all us mountain bikers that the frames have this now. We wanted to, we really wanted to look into it. And like I said, we took some serious time for it in this pre-development phase we had. So my colleague Lawrence really did some nice work engineering our take on this system with this, with the latch that's super easy to operate with low forces, but it keeps the lid super snugly, and just package everything you need nicely in there. But in terms of the structure of the frame, it's a challenge because, like you say, you cut a hole, you instantly lose stiffness and strength. Some of this you can compensate with just sheer wall thickness and layup, but not all of it. And then also just to have enough room for the parts you want to fit in the frame requires a certain geometry. That was a really, really challenging but cool collaboration between like me as a frame engineer, Lawrence who developed the storage, and also the industrial designers, and a crazy multiple variable optimization that we think we pretty much nailed in the end without. We probably sacrificed a few grams, but apart from that, everything worked out well, and now we're all happy to have the feature on the bike.
Yeah, and so you've got this like asymmetrical ridge on the drive side below the storage compartment. Is that there to bring back some of that strength and stiffness in that part?
Yeah. So the kink in the down tube is obviously one of the weak parts in any frame. Also, fitting a bottle on the lid there makes everything challenging, because I think most just riders have no clue how much of a headache fitting bottles to frames are. Like they take up so much room where you don't want to give it up. So like just everything from like the shock to the seat post to the bottle to the storage, and then the kink in the down tube having everything like that fitting and being close to optimized for their own single purposes, and the complete frame is a super big challenge. So just we wanted to keep the kink in the down tube as tight as possible to not have a huge belly of the frame. And then we figured out the position we have now was quite optimal for many purposes, but the bottom section got quite flat, which didn't really work out in terms of strength, especially. Maybe you could argue also like vertical stiffness, even if that's not super important to ride feel in this area. But with this ridge, since we made it asymmetrical, it doesn't really affect the use of the bottle at all, but it would help quite a lot in terms of strength. So that's just, we could have made everything symmetrical, but then we would have had to make a worse bend in the down tube, and by going to this level of optimization, we could just make everything that much tighter and more optimized.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it asymmetrical, because it could have ended up being a bit of a well when you're cleaning the bike. which we had to after this weekend. It was super nice to just have everything wash off. There's too many bikes with like little areas where everything just pools with water and mud and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that it was just down one side of the frame for sure.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention it because that didn't even cross my mind to put the ridge on both sides. Also, it wouldn't help much with the bottle operation, especially with this custom bottle. I don't know if you saw it already.
I've seen pictures of the custom bottle, but they weren't available at the time. So yeah, so you've got like a bottle that fits perfectly into the shape, right? Just to get a bit more volume into the bottle.
Yeah, correct. So obviously the frame can run a normal 600 bottle, just like normal. But like myself and a lot of others, we want as much water as we can on our rides, especially in summer. So yeah, we came up with that idea to make a custom bottle that holds 850 milliliters. That just fits perfectly into the frame. And yeah, we could achieve that by, partly with this asymmetric shape to the frame to give us the space, but also with a Fidlock mount that could hold such a heavy bottle. And then obviously you twist it so the rear swings out away from this asymmetric part of the frame. So everything is really designed together to be able to offer that option for anyone who wants that amount of volume, water volume.
Nice integration. Yeah, and another impressive integration task as a short rider who generally rides a medium bike and is probably at the lower end of the kind of medium size human. I've never had a 200mm drop post on a bike before, so that was a real surprise to me. Talk us through that again, because I think you've got more post drop on pretty much all the models. All the posts are full insertion, and even at the lowest saddle height on all of them, you can't buzz the rear wheel on the seat.
Yeah. So again, that ties in pretty well together with everything we've been discussing. So both the sizing strategy, but also this kind of level of optimization and refining it. So having the seat post fully, that it's possible to insert them fully into the frame is a little bit of a unofficial strategy from Canyon. We don't want to say, oh, your seat tube is this low and then you can't insert the seat post. That feels like a fraud, and that's not what we want to do. So it's always gonna fit all the way in, even if we have a kinked seat tube. Of course, the seat post really starts entering the area where the bottle is fighting for. Again, it makes everything tricky. We also went up in diameter for the seat post to just make it more robust. But yeah, obviously everyone wants to have proper long dropper posts, and it's tricky with, like you said, that the tire can bust the seat when you put it down far enough, or like all the way down. But then to have the correct seat height again for the intended body size range for each frame size, everything is connected. It's a challenge, but yeah, we feel like we pushed the seat tube lengths as short as we can now to not have the tire busting the seat, while still offering the correct adjustment range with some nice numbers for the travel on the dropper post on each frame size. So yeah, again, definitely. Just what we want to ride ourselves, and that's what we want to offer. So
yeah, it's cool. It's definitely appreciated, man. And there's a few other like maybe smaller things, but probably not insignificant from an engineering perspective. So you've improved the cable ports. The G5 stem is a lot tidier. I think the bolts have moved in front of the steer instead of behind. And you've got that lovely little counter-rotating mudguard on the loam shelf, as you'd call it, maybe, of the bike. Yeah. Like some super nice touches, huh?
Not insignificant. I spent unreasonable amounts of time on all of those, but it's nice that you pick it up. Not everyone will. Yeah. What did you say first?
The cable
routing. Yeah. So we love the system that we had on the previous Spectral that is fully guided. So you just push in your cables from the chainstays and they pop out in the front. That was much more of a challenge in the previous bike to get that dialed in, and I just wanted to find a better way to clamp the tubes to the frame with the cable guide. So I spent really a lot of time in both projects trying to find the best way to do it, and I think the way we do it now with just one bolt that holds the cable guide and clamps the tube was quite neat for everyone, just from our like frame production facility to just maintaining the bike and having it secure. It worked out quite well, but I don't think people understand how much energy and time that takes to just make cable guides. But we're super happy with these ones. They're quite
the best engineering often goes unnoticed, hey? Like if it's good, it doesn't cause you a problem, so you don't notice it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It definitely caused me problems, but I think from now on, it's good if it's like a problem for the engineer and not for everyone else. I guess that's how it's supposed to be.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah, but that turned out pretty well. And then, the stem, like you said, we moved the bolts from the back to the side, just getting or like using dead material in the stem a little bit, and also keeping the same level of just aesthetic integration with the spacers without having crazy shaped spacers. So I think like we really like the stems we do, and we think they're great products, but obviously we're mountain bikers. People want to customize their bikes. The stem is probably one of the things that people swap out first. We noticed that with our arrow shaped spacers we had before, that was a little bit of a problem for some people. So we just wanted to make it easier. So now everything is round, still looks super nice and integrated. Our designers are still happy, and we saved some weight and solved some other small issues, not issues, but we just made the stem a bit nicer in general. So pretty cool little detail.
Yeah, and that nice little mudguard as well is a very tidy bit of design.
True, yeah. I mean, I think most bikes have it by now. It's nice just to keep the mud out of there, to make, remove some demand on the maintenance of the bike, I guess. For me, I always want to make bikes that are easy to work on as well. So I didn't want to have something that connects both the chainstays and the front triangle to each other, so it's easy to take apart if you need to do something with your bearings or whatever. And I didn't also want to have something that rubs, even if you have plastic or rubber or something that it rubs against, it will wear down, especially there where it's so much dirt. So we came up with this idea that we have these two halves that are always overlapping and co-rotating. So the gap is always covered, but nothing ever touches. Again, unreasonable amount of time spent on it. But I think it worked out in the end. When we got it dialed in, we had zero issues with it, and it just works as intended. So that's, if no one notices, I did my job, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, man. So what have I missed? Are there elements of the bike that you're super proud of that we haven't talked about?
I mean, in the end, it's just how it rides. That's the important thing, right? For me, I'm happy we achieved this like playful, efficient feel from the 125. But what stands out for me is the capability of a 140 trail bike nowadays. Our first test, we went to La Sorrera Bike Park outside of Barcelona. I don't know if you know it, but that's way way above the pay grade of a Spectral normally. Some decently sized jumps and chunky trails, and we were like, okay, we're on the small bike. We're not here to do any kind of sick riding. We're here to test the bike and see if it holds up and everything. It didn't take long until we were like, did you see the triple over there? I bet we can pull it. And the bike just wants you to go big and go fast. And then you just, after a while, you remember, oh, I'm on the 140 trail bike. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome that you can have this efficiency climbing a bike and then have that much fun and go that big and push yourself on the way down with such small travel. So that's what I'm most happy about. It's cool.
Yeah, it is a very fun bike for sure. So, I mean, you set out to create the perfect trail bike with this new Spectral, but you're an engineer, and engineers are generally never completely finished with things.
Yeah.
How close do you feel you got to perfection with this one?
Actually, that was I started saying it internally. It was really just more like not a joke, but yeah, really unofficial claim within the project that this time we wanted to get as close to perfection as possible. Obviously, perfect is not possible. But yeah, that's why we went into every detail and really tried to refine everything. And I don't think I will develop the next Spectral, and I'm quite happy. Honestly, I think there are some small stuff you can do, keep learning, especially about flex and stiffness. And if you get into more, like even if you start changing the manufacturing process to achieve some of those things, you can keep making some gains. Geometry and kinematics always keep refining, but it's gonna be hard to find big steps from now on, I think.
Definitely, man. It is a great bike. You've done a fantastic job, and it's cool to dig in and find about a bit more about some of the engineering and some of the challenges behind some of the elements of it. If people are intrigued, they want to find out more, they want to check out the bike, is it the Canyon.com website, I guess, is the best place to head? I'm guessing it's going to be splashed over the homepage for a little while.
I think so, yeah. So just about the bike in general on the website for sure. I think we're going to have quite a few YouTube videos helping you to set it up and work on it. So if you decide to get one, there's going to be quite a lot of information there. Hopefully you can get in touch in person with either someone on the trail who gets one, or through our service centers or showrooms. But mainly Canyon.com, I guess.
Nice one. Well, thanks, Leo. It's been fun finding out more about it. It's been a lot of fun spending some time with the bike. It is an awesome piece of kit. You've done a fantastic job on it. Thanks for your time, and thanks for everything you've put into the bike, because I'm sure it was many, many hours of love and attention and graft that went into it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I like it too, and it's a fun job to do. So I hope more people can enjoy it now.
Nice one. Thanks, Leo.
Thanks.